The sun beat mercilessly on the dusty trail outside Silver Creek, Montana Territory. 1878. Sarah Mitchell wiped the sweat from her brow as she guided her weathered wagon along the rutted path, returning from a difficult delivery at the Henderson Ranch. 3 days of little sleep had left dark circles under their amber eyes, but the cry of a newborn baby made every exhausted mile worth traveling. Her horse suddenly reared, nearly overturning the wagon. There, collapsed at the trail's edge, in a pool of darkening blood, lay a man. His clothes were torn, his face dirt-streaked and pale as death itself. A bullet wound gaped in his shoulder, still seeping crimson into the parched earth. Before we continue with Sarah's desperate race to save this mysterious stranger's life, I'd love to invite you to take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and give this video a like. Your support truly matters to us and motivates us to bring you more quality content like this. I'm also curious, where are you listening to this story from? Let me know in the comments below. Sarah's nursing instincts overrode her caution. She'd seen enough death in her 26 years, first during the war as a battlefield nurse, then in the mining camps where injuries were commonplace. This man would become another if she didn't act immediately. "Help me," he rasped, his voice barely audible. His eyes, steel gray and startlingly alert despite his condition, fixed on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Don't speak. Save your strength." Sarah jumped from the wagon, her medical bag already in hand. She'd learned long ago that hesitation cost lives. With practiced efficiency, she tore open his bloodied shirt, exposing the wound. The bullet had passed through, which was fortunate, but infection was already setting in. The man's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. "My saddlebag! Destroy it! Before anyone comes!" "You're delirious. Stay still." Sarah pulled free and began cleaning the wound with whiskey from her supplies. He hissed in pain, but didn't cry out, unusual for a man with such a serious injury. "Not delirious. Important. Please." His gray eyes bore into hers with such desperation that she paused. "Who did this to you?" "Raiders. Thought I was—" "Nobody." His words came in gasps. "Need to stay. Nobody." Sarah glanced at the leather saddlebag lying near a dead horse 20 feet away. Everything in her screamed that this man was trouble, but she'd taken an oath to heal, not to judge. And something about him, perhaps the honorable desperation in those storm-colored eyes, told her he wasn't the villain in whatever tale had led him here. "I'm taking you to my cabin. It's 2 miles off the main trail. No one will find you there." She didn't know why she offered sanctuary to a stranger, but her instincts had kept her alive this long. "Why would you help me?" His question held genuine confusion. Sarah met his gaze steadily as she began bandaging his shoulder. "Because a nurse saved a drifter on the trail's edge. That's what I do. I don't ask questions about a man's past when he's bleeding to death." Something shifted in his expression, relief mixed with what might have been shame. "Names? Call me Jack." "Well, Jack, you're going to pass out from blood loss in about 30 seconds. When you wake up, you'll be in my cabin, and you'll stay there until I say you're well enough to leave. Understood?" He nodded once before his eyes rolled back and consciousness left him. Getting his considerable dead weight into her wagon tested every ounce of Sarah's strength. The man was solid muscle beneath his torn clothing, easily over 6 feet tall. She retrieved his saddlebag, noting its surprising heft, and his weapons, a Colt .45 and a Winchester rifle, both well-maintained and clearly belonging to someone who knew how to use them. Her cabin sat in a small valley surrounded by pine trees, invisible from the main trail. She'd chosen the location deliberately after fleeing Chicago and a marriage that had nearly killed her. Here, she lived alone, serving the scattered ranches and mining camps within a day's ride. It wasn't much. One large room with a loft, a barn for her horse and medical supplies. But it was hers, and it was safe. Until now. Sarah managed to get Jack inside and onto her bed. The only real furniture besides a table and 2 chairs. For the next 3 hours, she worked to stabilize him, cleaning the wound thoroughly, applying a poultice of yarrow and comfrey, checking for fever. His body bore the marks of a hard life. Old scars crisscrossed his torso, including what looked like a knife wound near his ribs and the remnants of a burn on his left side. This was no simple drifter. As twilight painted the Montana sky in shades of crimson and gold, Jack's fever spiked. Sarah spent the night bathing his forehead with cool water, listening to him mutter in delirium. Names tumbled from his lips. Places, too. Fort Smith, Parker, 3 more weeks. Can't fail. She filed away every word, her curiosity growing alongside her concern. He woke 3 days later. Sarah was grinding herbs when his voice, rough from disuse, broke the cabin's silence. How long? She turned to find him attempting to sit up, his face contorting with pain. 3 days, and if you tear those stitches, you'll be here another 3 weeks. Lie down. To her surprise, he obeyed, though his jaw clenched with frustration. Anyone come by? No one knows this place exists except the families I serve, and they wouldn't come without sending word first. Sarah brought him water and a bowl of broth. You need to eat. He studied her face as if memorizing every feature. The scatter of freckles across her nose, the auburn hair she'd tied back in a practical braid, the firm set of her mouth that came from years of making life-or-death decisions. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? She met his gaze without flinching. You were half dead and unarmed. Besides, I've dealt with drunk miners and wounded soldiers. I think I can handle one injured drifter. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You're either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both. Sarah helped him drink, supporting his head carefully. Go slow. It hurts. I know. The bullet tore through muscle. You're lucky it missed the bone. I don't feel lucky. But his eyes held gratitude as he finished the broth. Thank you for not leaving me to die. It's what I do. Sarah took the empty bowl. Now you're going to tell me the truth. Who are you really, and why did those men want you dead? Jack's expression shuttered closed. Better you don't know. I saved your life. I think I deserve to know if I'm harboring a criminal. The word hung between them like smoke. I'm not a criminal, he said finally, his voice low and sincere. But I can't tell you more than that. It would put you in danger. Sarah studied him for a long moment. She'd become skilled at reading men, knowing when they lied, when they meant harm. This man's eyes held secrets, yes, but not cruelty. All right, then you'll stay Jack the Drifter until you're healed enough to leave. Just like that? You'll trust me? I don't trust easily, Jack, but I know the difference between a bad man and a man in a bad situation. You can stay in my barn once you're strong enough to walk. Until then, you're stuck with my bed while I sleep in the loft. Over the following days, an unusual routine developed. Sarah tended her patients during the day, a rancher's broken leg, the child's fever, a difficult birth. Each evening, she returned to find Jack a little stronger, a little more alert. He insisted on moving to the barn after 5 days, claiming he'd taken enough of her hospitality. But something had shifted between them, an awareness neither could ignore. Sarah found herself lingering when she changed his bandages, her fingers trembling slightly at the warmth of his skin. Jack's eyes followed her movements around the cabin with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Neither acknowledged the growing tension, but it hummed between them like a living thing. 2 weeks after she'd found him, Sarah was startled by the sound of chopping wood. She rushed outside to find Jack, shirtless and sweating despite the cool morning air, splitting logs with methodical precision. His shoulder, though still healing, moved with practiced strength. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah marched toward him, hands on hips. "You'll reopen that wound." Jack set down the axe, his gray eyes gleaming with something like amusement. "I've been lying around for 2 weeks while you work yourself to exhaustion. Least I can do is make myself useful. You were shot. You're supposed to rest." "I'm a quick healer." He flexed his shoulder experimentally. "Besides, your wood pile was getting low. Winter's coming early this year. I can feel it in the air." Sarah wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd been so focused on caring for him and her other patients that she'd neglected her own preparations. "Fine, but I'm checking that wound afterward, and if there's any sign of infection, well, all right. You'll tie me to the bed and force-feed me medicine. I know." His smile transformed his face, erasing years of hardness. "You're a fierce healer, Sarah Mitchell." The sound of her full name on his lips sent unexpected warmth through her chest. "How do you know my last name? I never told you." His smile faded. "You talk in your sleep sometimes. I heard you in the loft, having nightmares. You called out. Someone named Richard. Said no over and over." Sarah's blood turned cold. She'd thought those nightmares were behind her. "That's none of your concern." She turned to leave, but Jack's hand, gentle despite its calluses, caught her wrist. "Sarah, wait. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything." "You're right. You shouldn't have." But she didn't pull away. His touch was nothing like Richard's brutal grabs. This was respectful, careful, as if he feared she might shatter. "Someone hurt you." It wasn't a question. Jack's voice had gone low and dangerous. "Recently. 3 years ago, I left Chicago and came here to escape him. My husband." The word tasted bitter. "Ex-husband now, if the divorce went through like my lawyer promised." Jack's jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jump. "Did he?" "Yes." Sarah met his eyes, refusing to show shame for something that wasn't her fault. "For 5 years, until I finally found the courage to run. I was a nurse at Mercy Hospital. One night, I didn't come home after my shift. I just left, took only what I could carry, and caught the first train west." "You're not property. You're a person," Jack said fiercely. "Any man who raises his hand to a woman deserves to hang." The conviction in his voice startled her. Sarah had expected pity or disgust, the reaction she'd gotten from the few who knew her story. Instead, Jack looked at her with something like admiration. "That's why you live out here alone? Why you're so careful?" "Yes, and why I'm very good at reading men. I know when someone means harm." She took a breath. "You don't, Jack. Whatever secrets you're keeping, whatever danger follows you, you're not a danger to me." His thumb brushed across her wrist, just once, before he released her. "I'll die before I hurt you. That's a promise." The words settled between them like a vow. From that day forward, Jack became her shadow. He split wood, repaired the barn roof, fixed the broken wagon wheel she'd been meaning to address for months. He taught her to shoot better. Your form's good, but you're anticipating the recoil, and showed her how to track deer through the forest. In return, Sarah taught him about healing herbs, how to identify poisonous plants, the proper way to set a broken bone. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, speaking only when necessary, but the awareness between them grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they sat on her porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, Jack spoke without looking at her. "I was married once, 7 years ago." Sarah's breath caught. She'd wondered about his past but never asked. "What happened?" "She died. Influenza outbreak in Kansas. I was away on work. By the time I got home, she'd been in the ground for 3 days." His voice was carefully neutral, but Sarah heard the grief underneath. Her name was Emma. She was 23. "I'm so sorry." Sarah wanted to touch him, offer comfort, but she held back. "I made a promise at her grave that I wouldn't let anyone else get close. Couldn't bear to lose someone again." He finally turned to look at her, his gray eyes turbulent with emotion. Been keeping that promise for 7 years, until now. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. "Jack, I know it's foolish. I'm leaving soon, have to leave. But I need you to know that these weeks with you have been. They've reminded me that I'm still alive, still capable of feeling something besides anger and duty." Before Sarah could respond, the sound of horses approaching shattered the moment. Jack was on his feet instantly, his hand going to the gun he now wore at his hip. The ease with which he moved, the way his entire demeanor shifted from gentle to lethal, confirmed what Sarah had suspected all along. This was no ordinary drifter. 3 riders emerged from the tree line, their faces hard and weathered. The leader, a man with a puckered scar running from temple to jaw, smiled coldly when he spotted Jack. Well, heard rumors a wounded man was being tended by the pretty nurse near Silver Creek. Didn't believe it could be you, Marshal Reeves, but here you are, alive and looking healthy. Marshal. The word hit Sarah like a physical blow. She glanced at Jack. No, Marshal Reeves, and saw confirmation in his expression. "You boys should ride on," Jack said quietly, positioning himself between Sarah and the riders. "This doesn't concern the lady." The scarred man laughed. "Oh, but it does. See, we can't have a U.S. Marshal testifying in Fort Smith about what we've been doing along the territory borders. Judge Parker's got a rope waiting with our names on it, thanks to you. There are 3 more deputies a day's ride from here. Kill me, and you'll have the full weight of the law hunting you down. Worth the risk." Scarface's hand drifted toward his gun. "Nothing personal, Marshal, just business." Time seemed to slow. Sarah saw the intent in the man's eyes a split second before his hand moved. She didn't think, just grabbed the Winchester leaning against the porch rail and fired. The shot went wide, but it was enough. The horses reared, giving Jack the opening he needed. His Colt cleared leather with practiced speed, and 2 shots rang out in quick succession. 2 raiders fell from their horses, dead before they hit the ground. Scarface wheeled his horse around, firing wildly. A bullet splintered the porch post next to Sarah's head. Jack's return fire caught the man in the chest, and he toppled backward into the dust. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Jack turned to Sarah, his face pale. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her hands trembled violently around the rifle. "I'm fine. You?" "Fine." He holstered his gun and reached for her, but Sarah stepped back. Marshal Reeves. Her voice shook with anger and betrayal. That's your real name? You've been lying to me this entire time? Sarah, let me explain. No. I saved your life. I trusted you. The rifle clattered to the porch as her legs gave out. Jack caught her before she could fall, his strong arms pulling her against his chest. I know, and I'm sorry. I couldn't tell you. Still can't tell you everything. He held her tightly, his heart pounding against her cheek. But the rest was real. Everything between us, that was real. Sarah wanted to push him away, to maintain her anger, but her body betrayed her, melting into his embrace. You're a U.S. Marshal. Yes, I've been tracking the Deacon gang for 6 months. They're responsible for 17 murders, countless robberies. I infiltrated their group, gathered evidence, was heading to Fort Smith to testify when they figured out who I was and ambushed me. His hand stroked her hair gently. You saved my life that day, Sarah. Not just from the bullet wound. You reminded me why I do this job. To protect people like you. Good people trying to live quiet lives. And now? She pulled back enough to see his face. What happens now? Jack's expression turned grim. I have to finish this. There are 4 more gang members out there, including the Deacon himself. I have to bring them in. When? Tomorrow. I've already delayed too long. His thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. But I'll come back, if you'll have me. Sarah searched his eyes for any hint of deception and found only painful honesty. You could die. I could. It's always a risk. Jack cupped her face in both hands. But for the first time in 7 years, I have a reason to make sure I don't. You, Sarah Mitchell, you're worth coming home to. His kiss was gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, Sarah rose on her toes and kissed him back with 7 years of loneliness and 3 years of fear finally melting away. When they broke apart, both were breathless. I see a woman worth saving, Jack whispered against her forehead. Worth fighting for, worth living for. And I see a man worth waiting for. Sarah gripped his shirt, holding him close. But if you die on me, Marshal Reeves, I'll never forgive you. He laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. Yes, ma'am. That night, they buried the 3 raiders in unmarked graves far from the cabin. Jack explained they were wanted men with prices on their heads. No one would mourn them. As they worked in moonlight, Sarah understood the weight he carried. Each criminal brought to justice meant families who could sleep safer, innocents who might be spared. He wasn't just a lawman. He was a guardian standing between chaos and civilization. Tell me about her, Sarah said as they walked back to the cabin. Emma. Jack's hand found hers in the darkness. She was gentle, loved to sing while she worked. Terrible cook, but the kindest soul I've ever known. He paused. She'd like you, I think. You have her strength, but you've got fire too. Emma never had that. Would she want you to be alone forever? No. She told me once if anything happened to her, I should find happiness again. I didn't believe I could, not until you. Jack stopped walking, turning to face Sarah. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know that you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Sarah reached up, tracing the scar on his jaw. A memento from some past battle. Then you'd better come back to me, Jack Reeves, because I've discovered I'm tired of being alone, too. They made love that night, slowly and carefully. 2 damaged souls finding healing in each other's arms. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. How he'd become one of the first deputy U.S. Marshals in the West after the war. about Judge Isaac Parker, the hanging judge of Fort Smith, and his mission to bring law to the lawless territories. About the men he'd captured, the ones who'd escaped, and the constant danger that came with wearing a badge. "I've been doing this for 12 years, Jack said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. Thought I'd keep doing it until someone faster drew on me. Had no reason to think about the future. But now? Now?" Sarah prompted. "Now I'm thinking about a cabin in Montana. A woman who's braver than any Marshal I've known. Maybe a garden, some horses, and a life that doesn't involve getting shot at every few months." Sarah's heart swelled. "You'd give up being a Marshal?" "I'd give up anything to have a future with you. Together, Sarah. If you'll have me once this is finished." "Together," she echoed, sealing the promise with a kiss. Jack left at dawn, armed and determined. Sarah stood on the porch, watching until he disappeared into the forest. She touched the silver badge he'd shown her, 5 points gleaming in the morning light, before returning it to his saddlebag, where he kept his true identity hidden. "Come back to me," she whispered to the wind. The next 3 weeks were agony. Sarah threw herself into her work, delivering babies, setting bones, treating fevers. But every evening, she stood on her porch, scanning the horizon for a rider who didn't come. Then, on the 23rd day, she returned from a call to find Jack sitting on her porch steps. He looked exhausted, sporting a fresh cut above his eye and bruises that spoke of hard fighting. But he was alive, and he was smiling. "It's done," he said simply. "The deacon and his men are in custody. Judge Parker sends his regards." Sarah ran to him, nearly knocking him over with the force of her embrace. "You're hurt." "Nothing compared to before, and nothing you can't patch up." Jack buried his face in her hair, breathing deeply. "I missed you. Every day, every night. It was all I could think about, getting back here, to you." "I was so scared." Sarah pulled back, studying his face. "Promise me that's the last time. No more chasing outlaws." "I already resigned, turned in my badge this morning." Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I made a stop in Silver Creek on the way here. Wanted to do this proper." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band set with a small sapphire. Nothing extravagant, but clearly chosen with care. "Sarah Mitchell, I know I'm not much, just a former Marshal with more scars than savings. But I love you. I love your strength, your compassion, your fire. I love the life we could build together." He took her hand, his gray eyes steady and sure. "Will you marry me?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The wedding took place 2 weeks later in Silver Creek's small church. Doc Harrison gave Sarah away, and the sheriff, Jack's old friend from his Marshal days, stood as best man. Half the town attended, curious about the mysterious nurse and the tall, quiet man who'd clearly won her heart. As they exchanged vows, Sarah looked into Jack's eyes and saw their future reflected there. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Built on honesty, respect, and a love forged through hardship. "You may kiss your bride," the Reverend announced. Jack's kiss was gentle but possessive, a promise of all the tomorrows to come. The congregation erupted in applause. That night, in the cabin that was now truly theirs, Jack held Sarah close as a Montana snow began to fall outside. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how a nurse saved a drifter on the trail's edge, not knowing he was a U.S. Marshal traveling incognito, and how that one decision changed everything." Jack laughed, the sound rich and happy. "Best decision you ever made." "Second best," Sarah corrected, kissing him softly. The best was saying yes. Over the following months, they transformed the cabin into a home. Jack built an addition, a proper clinic where Sarah could treat patients. He learned about medicine, becoming her assistant and partner in every sense. They bought horses, planted a garden, and weathered the harsh Montana winter, wrapped in quilts and each other's arms. Sarah's nightmares faded, replaced by dreams of the future. Jack's grief over Emma mellowed into sweet remembrance rather than sharp pain. Together, they healed each other's wounds, the visible and invisible ones. The town came to rely on them, both. Jack's reputation as a former marshal made him a natural mediator for disputes, while Sarah's medical skills were invaluable to the growing community. They became pillars of Silver Creek, respected and admired. On their first anniversary, as they stood on the porch watching the sunset, Jack pulled Sarah close. Happy? Deliriously. Sarah turned in his arms, her amber eyes glowing with contentment. You, more than I ever thought possible. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. Thank you for saving my life, Sarah Reeves. Thank you for giving me a life worth living, Jack Reeves. As darkness fell over the Montana territory, their laughter echoed across the valley. Two souls who'd found each other in the wilderness and built something lasting. Together, they'd created not just a home, but a sanctuary, a place where the past couldn't reach them, where love conquered fear, and where every day was a new beginning. In the distance, wolves howled their evening song. But inside the warm cabin, Sarah and Jack held each other close, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they would face them together. And that was enough. That was everything. 3 years later, Sarah stood on that same porch, cradling a dark-haired baby girl in her arms. Emma, named for the woman whose death had brought Jack such pain, but whose memory blessed their union, gurgled happily as her father rode up from checking the fence line. Jack dismounted and immediately reached for his daughter, his stern Marshal's face transforming into pure joy. "How are my girls?" "Perfect," Sarah said honestly. "Absolutely perfect." And as the Montana sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, the Reeves family went inside, together, always together, to face whatever tomorrow would bring. Because that's what they did. That's who they were. Two survivors who'd found each other when they needed it most. A nurse who'd saved a drifter. A marshal who'd found his way home. And a love that proved stronger than any wound, any secret, any fear. Together, forever. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in April, 6 months after their wedding. Sarah was grinding willow bark for pain medicine when Jack returned from town, his face ashen. The paper trembled slightly in his hands. The only sign of the turmoil she knew must be raging inside him. "What is it?" Sarah set down her mortar and pestle, her stomach nodding with instinct. Jack handed her the telegram without speaking. The words blurred together as she read. "Deacon escaped custody. Stop. 3 deputies dead. Stop. Sworn vengeance against Reeves. Stop. Parker." No. The word came out as barely a whisper. He was supposed to hang. Appeals process. Some lawyer found a technicality. Jack's voice was flat, emotionless, the way it got when he was burying fear deep. "Parker says Deacon killed the guards during a transfer. He's in the wind." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "How long until he finds us?" "Could be days, could be months. Deacon's patient when he wants revenge." Jack pulled her close, his arms tight around her. I won't let him hurt you. I promise you that. We could leave, go somewhere he'd never find us. California, maybe. Or running won't stop him. Men like Deacon, they don't quit. They track you to the ends of the earth. Jack pulled back, his gray eyes fierce. But I know how he thinks. Spent 6 months riding with his gang. I know his patterns, his habits. We use that. Sarah felt ice water replace the blood in her veins. You want to hunt him. I want to end this. Permanently. Before he brings hell to our doorstep. Jack cupped her face gently. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Every instinct screamed at Sarah to refuse, to demand they run and never look back. But she'd married a man who'd spent 12 years protecting others. That didn't just disappear because he'd turned in his badge. I trust you, she said finally. But I'm not sitting here helpless while you face him alone. Sarah, no, you taught me to shoot, to track. I'm not the frightened woman you found bleeding out on the trail. We face this together, or not at all. Jack studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Together. But we do this smart. Deacon has a tell. He always scouts his targets for 3 days before making a move. Learns their routines, finds weaknesses. We use that against him. Over the next week, they prepared. Jack taught Sarah advanced shooting techniques. How to reload quickly under pressure. How to compensate for wind and distance. They set up defensive positions around the cabin, cleared sight lines, established escape routes. At night, they planned scenarios, rehearsing responses until they became automatic. The town noticed the change. Doc Harrison pulled Sarah aside after she treated a rancher's infection. Something's wrong. Jack's carrying 2 guns now, and you've got that rifle in your wagon. What's happened? Sarah debated lying, but decided the doctor deserved honesty. She told him everything about Deacon's escape, the threat, their preparations. Doc's weathered face grew grim. That's a heavy burden for 2 people. Let me help. I'm too old to be useful in a fight, but I can watch, warn you if I see strangers scouting the area. It's dangerous. Girl, I've lived 73 years, buried 2 wives and more patients than I can count. If I die helping protect this town's best nurse and her husband, that's a death worth having. Doc squeezed her hand. You're not alone in this. His words proved prophetic. Over the following days, others came forward. Sheriff Davies, Jack's old friend, started making regular patrols past their property. Tom Henderson, the rancher whose wife Sarah had helped deliver twins, offered his sons as lookouts. Even Martha Clements, the stern schoolteacher, volunteered to keep watch during school hours. The community rallied around them. This is what we're fighting for, Jack said one evening as they watched the sunset from their porch. Not just us, all of them. Good people building lives worth protecting. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, drawing strength from his presence. How do you do it? Carry the weight of protecting everyone. I don't. Not anymore. Now I only have to protect what matters most. He kissed her temple. You, our life. Everything else is secondary. The attack came on the 13th day. Sarah was treating a child's fever at the Henderson Ranch when gunfire erupted from the direction of her cabin. Her blood turned to ice. Jack was supposed to be repairing the barn roof, completely exposed. Stay here, she commanded Mrs. Henderson, grabbing her rifle. She rode hard, her heart pounding a terrified rhythm. Please let him be alive. Please. She arrived to find chaos. 4 men on horseback circled the property, firing at the cabin. Jack had taken cover behind the water trough, returning fire methodically. His shoulder bled from a fresh wound, but his hands were steady. Sarah didn't hesitate. She dismounted at a run, using her horse as cover, and fired at the nearest rider. The shot caught him in the leg, and he fell from his saddle with a scream. "Sarah, get inside!" Jack's voice was hoarse with fear and fury. Not a chance. She reloaded and fired again, forcing another rider to wheel away. "We do this together, remember?" A bullet shattered the porch rail inches from her head. Sarah ducked, her ears ringing, then popped up to return fire. The attackers hadn't expected resistance from two sides. Their formation broke as they scrambled for cover. Then a voice rang out, cold and mocking. "Reeves, send out the woman, and maybe I'll let you live." Deacon. Sarah would know that voice anywhere from Jack's descriptions. He sat on a magnificent black horse at the tree line, well out of rifle range, watching the carnage with a smile. "Go to hell," Jack shouted back. "Interesting. Willing to die for some woman?" The Jack Reeves I knew didn't have weaknesses. Deacon's laugh carried across the clearing. "But that was before you played Judas, before you sent my brothers to the gallows. They murdered 17 innocent people. They deserved worse than hanging. They deserved loyalty. You rode with us for 6 months, ate our food, shared our fires. Then you betrayed us." Deacon's voice dropped to a deadly whisper that somehow carried. "Now I'll take everything from you, just like you took everything from me." He raised his hand, and his remaining men charged. What happened next would become legend in Silver Creek. Sarah and Jack fought side by side, their movements synchronized from weeks of practice. When Sarah's rifle clicked empty, Jack tossed her his pistol without looking. When a raider got too close, Sarah grabbed the shotgun from inside the cabin and blasted him off his horse. They were a unit, each covering the other's weaknesses, anticipating moves before they happened. The kind of partnership that only came from absolute trust. But Deacon had planned for resistance. While his men kept Sarah and Jack pinned, he circled around through the forest, approaching from their blind side. Sarah caught the movement too late. Deacon was already dismounting, his gun aimed directly at Jack's back. "No!" Sarah threw herself forward, tackling Jack sideways, just as Deacon fired. The bullet meant for Jack's heart tore through her side instead, white-hot agony that stole her breath. She fell hard, the world spinning. Through the haze of pain, she heard Jack roar with fury, a sound more animal than human. His colt barked twice, and Deacon staggered backward, clutching his chest. "You don't get to hurt her," Jack snarled, standing over Deacon's fallen form. "You don't get to take her from me." Deacon coughed, blood bubbling on his lips. Already did. His eyes fixed on Sarah's prone form, and he smiled. Worth it. Then he died. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader fall, broke and ran. Sheriff Davies and his deputies arrived minutes later, having heard the gunfire from town. They pursued the fleeing men, while Doc Harrison rushed to Sarah's side. "Jack," Sarah's voice was weak, thready. "Is it bad?" Doc's expression was grim as he examined the wound. Blood soaked through her dress. Too much blood. "We need to get her inside. Now." The next hours blurred together in a haze of pain and fear. Jack held Sarah's hand as Doc worked, his face white as chalk. The bullet had passed through her side, missing vital organs by millimeters, but she'd lost dangerous amounts of blood. "Stay with me," Jack whispered, over and over. "You promised. Together, remember? You can't leave me. I won't survive losing you too." Sarah wanted to answer, to reassure him, but the darkness kept pulling at her. She felt herself slipping away, her grip on consciousness weakening. "Fight!" Jack's voice cut through the fog. "Damn it, Sarah. You fight. You're the strongest person I know. You don't get to quit now." His words anchored her. Sarah dragged herself back from the edge, focusing on the warmth of his hand, the desperation in his voice. She'd faced down an abusive husband, built a life from nothing, and saved a dying Marshal on a dusty trail. She wasn't about to let a bullet finish her. Not quitting, she managed to whisper. Just resting. Jack's laugh was half sob. "That's my girl. Rest all you want, but you come back to me. You hear?" "Hear you." She woke 3 days later to find Jack asleep and a chair beside the bed, his hand still clutching hers. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, his clothes rumpled from days of wearing them. But when her fingers squeezed his eyes snapped open immediately. "Sarah." Her name was a prayer on his lips. "Thank God, you scared 10 years off my life." "Sorry," she croaked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Water?" He helped her drink, his hands shaking. "Doc says you'll make a full recovery, but it'll take time. The bullet missed everything vital, but you lost a lot of blood. Deacon? Dead, along with 2 of his men. The other 2 are in custody." Jack's expression hardened. "It's over. Really over this time." Sarah tried to sit up and gasped at the pain in her side. Jack immediately eased her back down, his touch infinitely gentle. "Easy. You saved my life, but you damn near got yourself killed doing it. What were you thinking? That I couldn't watch you die, that losing you would destroy me." Sarah met his eyes, seeing her own fear reflected back. "We're even now. You took a bullet for your duty. I took one for my husband." Jack pressed his forehead to hers, his breath shuddering. "Don't ever do that again. I can't go through that again, Sarah. When I saw you fall, when I saw all that blood." He couldn't finish. "Hey." Sarah cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "I'm here. I'm alive. We both are. That's what matters. I love you so much it terrifies me. If I'd lost you. But you didn't. We're together, just like we promised." She kissed him softly. "Now help me sit up. I want to see how bad the damage is." "Sarah, you need to rest." "I'm a nurse, remember? I need to assess my own injury. Besides, lying here feeling helpless is worse than moving around." She gritted her teeth against the pain as Jack carefully helped her into a sitting position. The wound was professionally bandaged. Doc's work, clearly. Sarah could tell from the technique that he'd done an excellent job. She'd be sore for weeks, maybe months, but she would heal. "What day is it?" she asked. "Friday." "You've been in and out of consciousness for 3 days." Jack handed her a cup of broth. "Doc's been checking on you twice a day. Half the town's come by with food and well wishes. You're a hero, Sarah. You and I both." "I don't feel like a hero. I feel like I got shot." But warmth spread through her chest at his words. This town, these people, had become her family. Over the following weeks, Sarah slowly recovered. Jack refused to let her lift a finger, taking over all her duties with a determination that was both touching and frustrating. He cooked badly and cleaned adequately and fussed over her like a mother hen. "I'm going to die of boredom before this wound kills me," Sarah complained on the 10th day of bed rest. "Good. Boredom I can handle." Jack fluffed her pillows for the 3rd time that hour. "Almost losing you to a bullet? Not so much. Jack Reeves, if you adjust those pillows one more time, I'm getting up and walking to town, just to prove I can." He sat down on the bed, careful not to jostle her. I know I'm being overprotective. I know you're capable and strong and don't need me hovering. But I can't help it. Every time I close my eyes, I see you falling, see the blood. And I remember Emma, how I wasn't there when she needed me most. His voice cracked. I can't fail again, Sarah. I just can't. Sarah's irritation melted away. She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. You didn't fail, Emma. You were doing your duty, and she understood that. And you didn't fail me. You killed the man who shot me. You protected me, Jack, just like you promised. By letting you get shot? By teaching me to fight beside you. By trusting me to be your partner, not just your wife. Sarah squeezed his hand. We survived because we worked together, because neither of us was alone. Jack was quiet for a long moment. I resigned from Marshal work to keep you safe. But safety isn't the absence of danger. It's facing danger together. I see that now. Good, because once I'm healed, I'm going back to my rounds. People need me. I know, and I'll be right beside you, just like you were beside me. He kissed her knuckles. Partners in everything. Partners in everything, Sarah echoed, true to his word. Once Sarah was well enough to resume her nursing duties, Jack became her constant companion. He drove the wagon, carried her supplies, and provided security during house calls. But he also learned, watching as she set bones, delivered babies, and treated illnesses. You're a natural, Sarah commented one day, after Jack had successfully helped her deliver twins at the Johnson Ranch. Ever consider becoming a medical assistant officially? You offering me a job, Mrs. Reeves? I'm offering you a partnership, Mr. Reeves. We make a good team. They did. Over the following months, Jack's reputation as a healer grew alongside Sarah's. Patients requested them both, appreciating Jack's steady presence and Sarah's skilled care. Together, they became an institution in Silver Creek. The nurse and her husband, who'd survived hell and come out stronger. But Sarah noticed changes in herself beyond the physical healing. She no longer flinched at sudden movements. The nightmares about Richard had disappeared entirely, replaced by dreams of the future. The fear that had driven her west, that had made her isolate herself in a remote cabin, had been burned away by fire. She was no longer running, she was living. One evening, as they sat on their porch, watching the stars emerge, Sarah made an announcement. I'm pregnant. Jack's head whipped around so fast she heard his neck crack. You're what? Pregnant. About 2 months along, I'd estimate. She couldn't help but smile at his stunned expression. Are you happy? Happy? Jack pulled her onto his lap, carefully, always careful of her healing wound. Sarah, I'm terrified and thrilled and amazed, all at once. A baby, our baby. I know it's sooner than we planned. It's perfect. You're perfect. He kissed her thoroughly. I'm going to be a father. A very protective father, if your recent behavior is any indication. Sarah laughed at his sheepish expression. But yes, in about 7 months, you'll be a father. Jack's hand settled on her still flat stomach with such tenderness it made her throat tight. I'll teach them to ride, to shoot, to stand up for what's right. And I'll teach them compassion, healing, that strength comes in many forms. Sarah covered his hand with hers. Together. Together, Jack agreed. Always. As the Montana night deepened around them, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a terrified woman fleeing abuse to a confident healer with a husband who cherished her, a community that respected her, and a child on the way. She'd traveled further than just miles west. She'd traveled from survival to living, from fear to love, from broken to whole. And it had all started with a dying man on a dusty trail and a split-second decision to stop and help. Sometimes, Sarah thought, the best things in life came from the moments when you chose compassion over caution, love over fear, and partnership over loneliness. She looked at Jack, her husband, her partner, her heart, and knew she'd choose him again, every single time, no matter the cost, no matter the danger. Together, they could face anything, and together they would. Winter came to Montana with a vengeance that year. Snow piled 6 feet high around the cabin, and temperatures plummeted until even the hardiest souls stayed indoors. Sarah's pregnancy progressed despite the harsh conditions, her belly swelling with new life, even as the world outside seemed determined to freeze everything solid. Jack had become impossibly more protective. He accompanied her on every call, no matter how routine. When Sarah protested that she was perfectly capable of delivering the Patterson baby alone, he'd simply looked at her with those steady gray eyes and said, "Humor me." She did, because beneath his calm exterior, she could sense the fear. Fear that something would go wrong. Fear that he'd lose her or the baby. Fear born from too many losses in his past. Jack, Sarah cornered him one evening as he was, yet again, checking the security of their windows. "You need to talk to me. This constant vigilance, it's not about Deacon anymore. He's dead, so what's really bothering you?" He stopped, his back rigid. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his shoulders sagged, and he turned to face her. "Emma was pregnant when she died." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. "What?" "6 months along. I didn't know. She hadn't told me yet. I found out from her sister after the funeral." Jack's voice was hollow. "I lost them both, my wife and my child, and I wasn't even there to say goodbye." Sarah crossed to him, her movements awkward with her growing belly, and wrapped her arms around him. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I never told you because I didn't want you to think something. I don't want history to repeat itself, Sarah. I can't survive losing you both." His arms tightened around her carefully. "Every time you go out in this weather, every time you're out of my sight, I imagine the worst. Then we'll be careful, together. But Jack, you can't protect me from everything. Childbirth is risky. We both know that. Women die, babies die, and no amount of vigilance changes those odds." Sarah pulled back to look at him. "But I'm strong. Our baby is healthy, and I'm the best nurse in this territory. If anyone can survive this, it's me." "I know. Logically, I know that. But logic doesn't calm the fear. Then let me help carry it. You've been shouldering this alone for 7 years. Let me share the burden." Sarah took his hand and placed it on her belly, where their child kicked vigorously. "Feel that? That's our baby, strong and alive. We made that together. We'll see it through together." Jack's expression softened as he felt the movement beneath his palm. "Feels like he's trying to kick his way out already. Or she. Could be a girl with her father's stubbornness." Sarah smiled. "Either way, they're definitely a fighter." Over the following weeks, Jack slowly relaxed. Not completely. Sarah doubted he'd ever be completely at ease with her safety. But enough that he stopped checking the windows obsessively and occasionally let her make short trips alone. The town rallied around them as they'd done before. Doc Harrison made regular visits, bringing medical supplies and checking on Sarah's progress. Martha Clements organized the women to prepare baby clothes and blankets. Tom Henderson and his sons cut extra firewood, ensuring the Reeves family would stay warm through the worst of winter. "This is what community means," Sarah told Jack one evening as they sorted through yet another basket of donated items. "People taking care of each other, looking out for their own. We're part of something bigger than ourselves now." Jack held up a tiny knitted cap, his expression bemused. "Hard to believe someone so small will wear this. Hard to believe we're going to be parents." Sarah settled back in her rocking chair. "Another gift from the community. Are you scared? Terrified? You? Absolutely." She laughed at their shared honesty. "But we'll figure it out. Together." "Together," Jack agreed, and Sarah knew they would be okay. The baby came on a bitter February night when the wind howled like wolves and snow fell so thick it was impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Sarah's labor started just after supper, strong contractions that left no doubt this child was coming tonight. "I need Doc Harrison," Sarah gasped between contractions. "This is moving fast." Jack's face went white, but his voice stayed steady. "I'll get him. You stay here. Stay warm. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Jack, in this weather? I know these paths in my sleep. I'll be careful." He kissed her forehead. 20 minutes, I promise." He kept his word. Sarah had just managed to get into bed when Jack returned with Doc Harrison, both men covered in snow and breathing hard from the rapid journey. "Let's see what we have here," Doc said, shedding his coat and rolling up his sleeves. He examined Sarah quickly, his experienced hands gentle. "You aren't kidding about moving fast. You're almost fully dilated. This baby's eager to meet the world." What followed was the longest night of Sarah's life. Despite being a nurse who delivered dozens of babies, experiencing labor firsthand was entirely different. The pain was overwhelming, each contraction feeling like it might tear her apart. But Jack never left her side. He held her hand, let her squeeze until his bones creaked, and whispered encouragement, even when she cursed him for getting her pregnant in the first place. "That's it," he murmured during a particularly brutal contraction. "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." "Easy for you to say," Sarah panted. "You're not pushing a human out of your body." Jack's laugh was strained but genuine. "Fair point, but I know you, Sarah Reeves. You survived Richard, survived being shot, survived Deacon's attack. This baby doesn't stand a chance against your determination." Despite the pain, Sarah smiled. "Damn right." At dawn, as the storm finally began to clear, their daughter entered the world with a lusty cry that echoed through the cabin. Doc Harrison cleaned her quickly and placed her in Sarah's arms, a perfect, tiny miracle with dark hair and gray eyes like her father's. "Emma," Sarah said softly, looking at Jack through tears of joy and exhaustion. "We'll call her Emma, to honor the woman who loved you first." Jack's expression crumbled. He touched his daughter's tiny hand with one finger, his own hands shaking. "Sarah, you don't have to." "I want to. Your first Emma would want you to be happy, to have a family. This way, her memory lives on in love, not just grief." Sarah guided his hand to cradle the baby's head. "Say hello to your daughter, Papa." Jack carefully took Emma into his arms, and Sarah watched as he fell completely in love. The hard lines of his face softened, years of pain and loss melting away as he gazed at his child. "Hello, little one. I'm your papa, and I promise I'll always protect you, always keep you safe." "And teach her to shoot," Sarah added with a tired smile. And teach her to shoot, Jack agreed. And to heal. And to be brave like her mama. Doc Harrison cleaned up quietly, giving the new family privacy. You did beautifully, Sarah. Both mother and baby are healthy. I'll check back tomorrow, but I think you're in good hands. After he left, Jack settled onto the bed beside Sarah, Emma cradled between them. The three of them, a family, watched the winter sun rise over the Montana mountains, painting the snow-covered world in shades of pink and gold. We did it, Sarah whispered. We made a person. We made a family, Jack corrected. He kissed Sarah's temple, then Emma's head. Everything I never thought I'd have again. Everything I thought I'd lost forever. Then, you think your first Emma would approve? Jack was quiet for a moment, his fingers gentle on baby Emma's cheek. I think she's smiling down on us right now. She always wanted children, wanted a house full of them, actually. His voice grew soft with memory. She'd tell me to love you with everything I have and to give our daughter the world. Then that's what we'll do. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Together. Together, Jack murmured. Always. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, secure in her husband's arms with their daughter between them. She marveled at how far she'd come. From a broken woman fleeing violence to a mother holding new life. The journey had been hard, painful, and terrifying. But it had led her here, for this moment, to this family, and she wouldn't change a single step of it. Not the pain of her past with Richard, not the fear of those first months alone, not even the bullet that had nearly killed her, because every struggle, every hardship, every moment of terror had shaped her into the woman she was today. Strong enough to be Jack Reeves's partner, brave enough to face danger, and resilient enough to build a life worth living. Outside, the storm cleared completely, and brilliant sunshine reflected off pristine snow. Inside the warm cabin, a new family slept peacefully, bound together by love forged in fire and tested by hardship. And in the years to come, they would face new challenges, new joys, new sorrows, but they would face them together. Jack, Sarah, and Emma, building on the foundation they'd created through trust, respect, and unwavering partnership. Because that's what family did. That's what love meant. Together, always together. Emma Reeves grew like a wildflower in springtime. Fast, fierce, that's Jack's expression turned proud. That's my girl. But raising Emma wasn't without challenges. The same fierce independence that made her brave also made her reckless. At 8, she climbed onto the barn roof and fell, breaking her arm. At 9, she tried to tame a wild horse and earned a spectacular set of bruises. At 10, she followed a wounded cougar into the forest, trying to help it, and only Jack's quick tracking saved her from becoming the predator's dinner. She's going to give us gray hair, Sarah said after that particular incident, watching as Jack lectured their unrepentant daughter about safety. Too late. I've been gray since the day she was born. But Jack's eyes shone with love as Emma hugged him, promising to be more careful next time, a promise they both knew she wouldn't keep. The town had grown over the years. Silver Creek now boasted a proper hospital, a 2-story building with Sarah as head nurse and Jack as her assistant. Doc Harrison had retired, though he still made house calls occasionally, unable to completely give up the work he loved. New families arrived regularly, drawn by stories of good land and a welcoming community. Among them was a family of Chinese immigrants, the Chens, who opened a restaurant. Thomas Chen became Jack's closest friend, and their children, Emma and Ming, were inseparable. "It's different than when we first came here," Sarah observed one day as she and Jack walked through town. Silver Creek had sidewalks now, street lamps, even talk of bringing in a railroad spur. "Progress," Jack said. "Not all of it good, but mostly. At least we don't have to worry about outlaws attacking every few months. Just worry parents bringing their wild children to the hospital." Sarah waved at Mrs. Patterson, who was herding her 5 children toward the general store. "Speaking of which, have you talked to Emma about?" "About what?" Emma appeared seemingly from nowhere, making both her parents jump. At 10 years old, she'd already mastered the art of moving silently, a skill Jack had taught her, perhaps too well. "About not sneaking up on people," Jack said sternly, though his eyes twinkled. "One of these days, someone's going to shoot you, thinking you're a threat. Then they'd have to explain to Mama why they shot the town doctor's daughter. That's more scary than any bullet." Emma grinned unrepentantly. "Can I go to Ming's house? Her mama's teaching us Chinese cooking." "Homework first," Sarah said firmly. "Already done. Miss Clements checked it herself." Emma produced her slate, covered in perfect arithmetic. "Please, Mrs. Chen is making dumplings, and she said I could help." Sarah and Jack exchanged glances, the wordless communication of parents who'd perfected the art of unified fronts. "Fine, but home by sunset." "Thank you." Emma hugged them both and raced off, her dark braids flying behind her. "She's got too much energy," Jack said fondly. "She's got your energy. I see you when you think I'm not looking, checking the perimeter, making sure everyone's safe. She's the same way, just more obvious about it." Sarah took his hand as they continued walking. "She's gonna be amazing, Jack. Already is." "Gets that from her mother." They stopped at the cemetery on their way home, as they did every few months. 2 headstones stood side by side in a quiet corner. One for Jack's first wife, Emma Whitaker Reeves, and beside it, a marker for the child she'd carried. Sarah had paid for both stones, insisting that Jack's first family be properly remembered. She never felt jealous of Emma's memory. Instead, she felt grateful to the woman who'd loved Jack first and taught him how to be the man Sarah had fallen for. Jack knelt, placing wildflowers on both graves. "Hey, Emma, wanted you to meet our daughter. Well, sort of meet her. She's named after you, you know. Sarah's idea." He smiled. "She's incredible, brave and smart and so full of life. You'd love her. And Sarah, you'd love Sarah too. She's everything I never knew I needed. Everything I thought I'd lost forever." Sarah stood back, giving him space for this private moment, but Jack reached back, taking her hand and pulling her down beside him. "I want you to hear this too," he said softly. "I loved Emma, my first Emma. Loved her with everything I had. But I love you just as much, just as deeply. Different loves for different times in my life, but both real, both precious." He turned to face Sarah fully. "Thank you for never making me choose between honoring her memory and building a life with you." Sarah kissed him gently. "We carry our past while building our future. That's what makes us who we are." As they walked home through the golden afternoon light, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that day she'd found a bleeding stranger on the trail. She'd been running from her past then, terrified and alone. Now she was running toward her future, with a partner beside her and a daughter leading the charge. Life in the Montana Territory wasn't easy. Winters were brutal. Summers were hot, and illness and injury were constant threats. But Sarah had discovered something more valuable than ease or comfort. She'd found purpose, community, love. She'd found home. Not just a place, but a feeling. The warmth of Jack's hand in hers, Emma's laughter echoing through their cabin, the satisfaction of delivering a healthy baby or setting a broken bone, the respect of her neighbors, and the trust of her patients. This was what she'd been searching for without knowing it. This was worth every hardship, every struggle, every moment of fear. That evening, as they sat on their porch watching Emma and Ming play in the yard, Jack spoke quietly. "Do you ever regret it? Stopping to help me that day?" Sarah didn't even have to think about her answer. "Never. Not once. That was the day my real life began." "Mine too." Jack pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders. "Everything good in my life traces back to you saving me on that trail. This town, this family, this life, none of it exists without that moment." "Then I'd do it again, 1,000 times over." Sarah watched their daughter, their fierce, beautiful, impossible daughter, and smiled. "We made something good here, Jack. Something that will outlast us both." "We did, and it started with a nurse who saw a dying man and chose compassion over caution, and a marshal who saw a lonely woman and chose partnership over solitude." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Emma and Ming's laughter carried on the evening breeze, the sound of childhood joy that every parent treasures. In the distance, a train whistle sounded, the new railroad finally reaching Silver Creek. Progress marching forward, bringing new people, new challenges, new opportunities. But here on this porch, with her husband beside her and her daughter safe and happy, Sarah felt only contentment. The past had shaped her, but it no longer controlled her. The future would bring its own trials, but she would face them with strength born from surviving the worst and building the best. She had everything she needed, everything she'd ever wanted but been too afraid to dream of. A home, a family, a purpose, and a love that had proven stronger than fear, deeper than pain, and more enduring than time itself. Together, they'd built something beautiful from the ashes of their broken pasts, and together they would continue building it. One day at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. Because that's what they did. That's who they were. Partners, lovers, parents, friends. Together, forever, always. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Sarah and Jack's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.